The man with the unfamiliar uniform came back with two others. He'd left me stewing in that tent long enough for the anger to burn through the shock and turn into something colder. My chest hurt every time I breathed. It wasn't the dull, theatrical ache you get after a good fall and a bad harness. It was sharp and hot, like there was a coin of fire lodged under my collarbone. The tent smelled wrong. Not just period medical display wrong. Not clean hay and rubbing alcohol and staged blood packs. It smelled like wet wool and boiled metal and shit someone tried to cover with carbolic. Underneath it, sweet, cloying rot. Too real. Too lived in. When the flap opened, sunlight stabbed in and I squinted hard enough to make my head throb. The first man was the one from before. Older than me, maybe 40. Mustache. Eyes that didn't smile. The other two carried a stretcher between them like they were already deciding where to throw me. Vous parlez anglais? The mustache man asked, and when I stared at him like an idiot, he switched with an accent that wasn't put on. You speak. Good. You do not have fever now. That is fortunate. Where's the coordinator? My voice came out hoarse. I hated that immediately. I hated sounding weak. Who's running this? I want the fucking unit commander. I want the event director. He didn't even flinch at the swearing. He just looked at me like you look at a dog that bites because it's hurt. I am the medicine aid major for this post. Your director is Captain Lemercier. He is at brigade. He is busy with dying men, not your temper. Great. Bring him. We will not. Then bring someone who can get me out of here. I've been shot. That was live ammo. I swallowed because the bitterness rose again, thick and chemical, like I'd licked a battery. This is negligence. Whoever loaded those rifles. The two stretcher men exchanged a glance. Not confusion. Something closer to disgust. The mustache man stepped closer. The canvas shadow cut his face in half. You were found with no identification. You wear strange underclothes. He said it like perversion. And you were on the wrong side of the line when you were shot. I was on the wrong side of the line because you told me to go over, you idiot. His eyebrows rose a fraction. Who told you? My commander. At the reenactment. He said the French word like it was something he'd heard in a dream and didn't trust. No. I ask again. Who told you to go forward? The guy with the whistle. I snapped. Jesus Christ. He turned his head slightly, like he was listening to something behind me. Then he looked back with that same flat patience. There is no whistle. There was. That's how it works. Not here. One of the stretcher men spoke, quick and sharp. The mustache doctor answered without looking away from me. Look, I said, forcing myself to slow down because the pain in my chest was starting to make stars at the edge of my vision. I don't know what you think you're doing, but someone fucked up. I got shot with a real bullet. You need to call an ambulance. A real one. This is not immersive theater. This is not. The doctor sighed through his nose. He leaned in, and with 2 fingers he tugged the canvas edge of my bandage. Not enough to rip it, just enough to remind me he could. You were shot with a Mauser bullet, he said. It passed here. He tapped my shoulder near the burn, and I hissed. And here is a fracture of the scapula. You did not die because God is kind, or because the German soldier is incompetent. Do you understand? A real bullet, a real war, and you are not in a theater. I stared at him. He held my gaze like he'd done this 100 times. Men waking up and trying to explain the unexplainable. Men begging to be somewhere else. Where am I? I heard myself ask and hated how small it sounded. He straightened. Near Rossignol, he said. In Belgium. It is August, 1914. I actually laughed. I couldn't stop it. It burst out of me like air from a punctured lung. Okay, I said, still laughing, because if I didn't, I was going to start screaming. Okay, so you're leaning into it. Fine. You want to do a period-accurate field hospital? Great. But you don't get to shoot people to make it real. The doctor's face didn't change. One of the stretcher men spat something in French that didn't need translation. The doctor waited until my laugh died on its own, like a bad engine losing momentum. You are not joking, he said. You are, what is the word? You believe this is not happening. Because it's not. He looked at me for a long second. Then he said something to the stretcher men, and one of them reached down and grabbed my wrist. I jerked instinctively, and pain knifed through my shoulder. I swore and tried to pull back anyway. The man tightened his grip. Don't. I warned and immediately felt ridiculous because what was I going to do? Punch him with my good arm and collapse? The doctor put a hand up. No violence, he said calmly. You already bleed enough. We move you to the observation tent. You speak to Father Morel. He will hear your confusion. Then we decide if you're a coward, spy, or he paused like he didn't like the next word. Mel. I'm not a spy, I said through my teeth. And I'm not a coward. Then you will behave. The stretcher men moved like they'd done this 1,000 times. They slid the canvas under me, lifted in a practiced heave that made my chest flare with pain, and carried me out. Outside, the world hit me in the face like cold water. The light was wrong. That was the first thing, the stupidest thing, the thing I'm still embarrassed to say out loud, because it sounds like something you'd say in a ghost story to make the atmosphere spooky. But it's true. The daylight had a hard edge, like the sun was closer. The shadows were blacker. Everything looked slightly underexposed, like reality had turned down its own softness filter. And the sound, not speakers, not a hidden PA system, not distant artillery track number 3. Real artillery has a weight to it. You feel in your teeth. You feel in your guts like a hand squeezing. Somewhere beyond the trees, something boomed. The ground shuddered. A flock of birds erupted from the canopy in a frantic black spray. I craned my head as much as the sling would allow. Tents, rows of them, mud churned into a paste by hundreds of boots and wagon wheels. Men on stretchers, men sitting up with bandages over their eyes, men screaming while someone held them down and poured something into their mouths. A heap of uniforms, actual uniforms, soaked dark. Flies, a cart rattled by piled with limbs. I mean it literally. Arms, legs, boots still on some of them. My stomach lurched. I started, but my voice vanished under another distant boom. The doctor walked alongside the stretcher like he wasn't carrying me into hell, like this was just Tuesday. His boots were caked, his sleeves were rolled up, and his forearms were smeared with old blood. Not stage blood. Old blood dries brown and cracks. It doesn't shine. I tried to twist enough to look behind us for the spectator rope line, for the parking lot, for the bright nylon tents of vendors and food trucks, for someone in a modern jacket holding a phone up, giggling, for anything that would anchor me. There was only forest and mud and wounded men. We passed a water barrel where two boys, maybe 15, were rinsing rags that came out pink and then red and then stayed red. One of them glanced at me and his eyes slid away like he didn't want to meet mine. I was carried past a man who was sitting on the ground with his back against a tent pole. He had his helmet off and he was rocking slowly, fingers digging into his own hair like he was trying to pull his skull apart. His face was smeared with dirt and tears. He stared straight ahead and murmured something over and over. I couldn't make out the words. Another man, no older than me, had his hands pressed to his stomach like he was holding something in. He looked up as we passed, and his lips moved. Oh, he whispered, "Oh, s'il vous plaît." Water. A nurse. If she was a nurse, she was the hardest woman I've ever seen. Knelt beside him and shook her head without pity. She pushed his hand away. His fingers came up wet and black. He looked at them like he didn't understand. I started sweating cold. "We're done," I said, loud to the doctor. "Okay, you made your point. This isn't funny. This is too far. Call it. Call it right now." He didn't look at me. "You think we do this for points?" He said, not unkindly, and that was worse. "You think we enjoy this?" "I don't know what the fuck you're doing." I snapped and my voice cracked. "But it's not safe." "Safe," he repeated, like it was a foreign concept. The stretcher shifted under me, and I got a glimpse between tents of something I didn't know how to process. A line of men trudging in from the forest. Not marching, stumbling, helmets low, rifles slung. Their uniforms were torn and filthy. Some of them had bandages. Some of them had no bandages, and you could see the red anyway. They weren't reenactors. They weren't performing. They moved like people who have seen something they can't unsee. Behind them, carried between two others, was a man whose legs dragged like he'd forgotten how to use them. My mouth went dry. As we passed, one of the trudging men turned his head. His gaze landed on me, on my sling, on my cleaner, clothes, and something ugly flashed in his eyes. He spat. "Plank," he said. "Shirker. Hider. Coward." I tried to sit up, to shout back, to tell him I'd been shot too, that I hadn't asked for any of this. The stretcher men shoved me down without looking. The doctor didn't react. It was just normal. Hate was as common here as mud. They carried me into another tent, darker and quieter. The air inside was stale with sweat and wax and the faint, sour smell of fear. A priest sat at a small table, writing something by candlelight, even though it was day. He looked up when we came in. His eyes were pale and tired. He didn't look surprised. Nothing surprised him, not after what he'd seen. The doctor spoke to him in French. The priest nodded slowly, then looked at me. "Hello," he said in careful English. "You are American?" "No." "English?" "No." He frowned. "Where are you from?" "Not 1914, I said, and my throat tightened around the words. I'm from now. I'm from 100 years from now." The priest's face didn't change much, but something tightened around his eyes. Not disbelief exactly, more like resignation. The doctor said something sharp in French. The priest held up a hand. "It is okay," the priest murmured, and then to me, "You have been wounded. You are afraid. It is normal to say strange things." "I'm not afraid." I lied, because pride is a stupid thing to cling to when your world is dissolving. The priest's gaze drifted to my chest bandage, then to my hands. He noticed, I think, that I didn't have the ingrained grime under my nails like everyone else. That my calluses weren't quite right. "What is your name?" he asked. I hesitated because giving my real name felt like surrender, like making it real. But I said it anyway. The priest repeated it slowly, tongue stumbling over it. "It is not common," he said. "Yeah, because I'm not from here." He set his pen down. "Tell me," he said gently, "what do you remember?" And the thing is, I wanted to tell him everything. I wanted to grab him by the collar and pour the whole story into his skull, like a confession that could save me. Eclipse, forest, smoke, the Germans stepping out like a stage cue. The impact that wasn't supposed to be real. But as soon as I opened my mouth, my memory did something I didn't expect. It slipped, like my mind had been holding onto the reenactment day with white knuckles, and now that I was looking at it directly, it started sliding around, not quite locking into place. I remembered the trench, the crack like lightning in the timber brace. But when I tried to picture the crowd beyond the no man's land, the spectators, the cameras, there was nothing. Just fog. I remembered rehearsals. I remembered watching old recordings. I remember names, Danny, the munitions guy. But when I tried to remember Danny's last name, it was gone. I could still feel the weight of my modern boots. But when I looked down, my boots were not mine. They were leather. Cracked. Laced up with fraying cord. I started shaking. The priest watched me with quiet attention. "Shell shock?" The doctor said, impatient, in English, like he'd learned a phrase and was proud of it. The priest didn't answer him. He waited. I swallowed hard and tried again. "I was at an event," I said. "A reenactment. We do performances. We dress like you. Like them." I jerked my chin toward the tent flap, toward the world outside. "We fake battles. We use blanks. We rehearse. We know where we're supposed to be." The priest nodded slowly like he understood the concept, even if it was insane to him. "There was an eclipse," I said. "It got dark. Everything got wrong. And then I licked my lips. They tasted like blood and metal. Then I got shot, and I woke up here." The doctor snorted. "Reenactment," he repeated, mocking. "So you play at war. You play. And now you are here, and you cannot. What? Tell the difference." "Fuck you," I said, and immediately regretted it because my voice echoed in the small tent and the priest's eyes flicked toward the flap like he worried someone else would hear. The priest raised a hand again, calm. "You have a notebook?" he asked. I blinked. "What?" "You were writing," he said, nodding toward my lap. I looked down. My hands were still clutching the journal. The same leather-bound thing I'd started this in. The one that, if this was a reenactment, should have been a prop. The one that, if this was real, shouldn't exist in my hands. I tightened my grip like it could keep me anchored. "Yes," I said. The priest leaned forward. "May I see?" "No," I said immediately. The doctor stepped closer. "He has no right to refuse," he said. "Like hell." I snapped, and the stretcher men, still standing like silent threats, shifted. The priest's voice stayed soft. "It is important," he said. "If you're accused of espionage, it will not go well for you. A notebook with strange words, it is dangerous. If you show me, perhaps I can say it is madness. That you're not a spy. That you're wounded and confused." I stared at him. He didn't look like a liar. He looked like someone who'd spent days telling dying men there was meaning in it and had started to suspect there wasn't. My throat tightened. "Fine," I said, and shoved the journal toward him. "But don't tear it." He took it carefully, like it was sacred. He opened it. His eyes scanned the first page, the angry complaint I'd written earlier, the neat handwriting that looked too clean for this place. He frowned. "This is English," he murmured. "Yeah, but the paper," he rubbed it between thumb and finger. His brow furrowed. "It is not the paper we have." The doctor leaned over his shoulder, then straightened sharply, and for the first time since I woke up, something like unease flickered across his face. He said something in French that sounded like a curse. The priest glanced up at him. "What?" The doctor didn't answer. His eyes were on the notebook, like it was a snake. "You see," I said, voice too loud. "It's real. It's not yours. It's mine. I don't belong here." The priest turned another page, then another. His gaze paused. He looked up at me slowly. "There are words," he said, choosing them with care, "that I do not understand." "Like what?" He tapped the page. "Graduate student, recordings, event director." I froze. Those words weren't in the transcription I'd been writing. They were from the museum worker's introduction, from a voice that wasn't mine, from a part that, in my mind, belonged to some future person reading this. I felt my skin prickle. "What page are you on?" I asked. He blinked, confused. "The first." "No," I said, and my voice came out sharp enough to make the stretcher men tense. "Read it, out loud." The priest hesitated, then did, softly, in accented English. "I work in museum collections," he read. My stomach dropped. The doctor snatched the notebook out of his hands. "Enough," he snapped, in French. Then in English, "This is nonsense." He flipped pages quickly, scanning. His face went pale under the grime. The priest reached for the notebook again, but the doctor held it away like it burned. "Where did you get this?" the doctor demanded. "It's mine," I said, and my voice shook. The doctor stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Not as a wounded idiot, as a problem. "This is not," he swallowed. "This is not possible." "Noshit I whisperat." Outside, another boom rolled through the earth. The tent canvas shivered. The doctor's jaw worked like he was grinding his teeth. He shoved the notebook back into my hands hard enough to jolt my shoulder. "You keep it," he said, suddenly harsh. "You keep your cursed book, but you will not leave. You will not walk around with this and speak your foolishness. Do you understand? Men are dying. They will not tolerate." He stopped, breathed hard, then said the word anyway. "Fantasy. I'm not trying to." He cut me off. "You will stay," he said. "You will heal, and then you will go where you are told." "I'm not going to the front," I said instantly, because the words leapt out of me like survival. The doctor's eyes hardened. "You do not choose," he said. "You think you are special because you speak English and have strange paper? You are a soldier now. You will do what soldiers do." "I'm not a soldier," I said. He leaned in close enough that I smelled tobacco on his breath. "Everyone here is a soldier," he said quietly. Even the boys. He turned and stalked out. The priest watched him go, then looked back at me with something like pity. "I am sorry," he said. I swallowed hard. "Read it again," I whispered. "The first line." He hesitated, then repeated, "I work in museum collections." My hand shook around the notebook. "That's not." I started and couldn't finish because my throat closed up. The priest's gaze softened. "Perhaps," he said carefully, "you are seeing things." "It's written," I snapped, too loud, and the stretcher men shifted again. "It's not in my head. It's on the page." He nodded slowly, conceding that. "Then perhaps," he said, "you are meant to write it." That hit me like another bullet. Meant to write it. Like it was a script. Like I was a character trapped in someone else's artifact. I stared down at the notebook, and for a horrible second, I couldn't remember whether I'd ever owned it before this day. Like maybe it had always been in my hands, and I'd only convinced myself it was a prop because I needed an explanation. I forced myself to breathe. The priest stood, smoothing his cassock. "I will speak to the captain," he said. "I will tell him you are unwell. You must not speak to others of these things. It will not help you." He paused at the tent flap, and he added quieter, "Do not call the doctor an idiot again. He will not forgive it." Then he was gone. The stretcher men lifted my stretcher without ceremony and carried me deeper into the tent lines, to a smaller canvas shelter where they dumped me on a cot and left. I lay there, staring at the tent ceiling, listening. The sounds outside never stopped. Groans, shouts, the rattling of carts, the wet cough of men drowning in their own lungs. And underneath it all, that distant thump of artillery, like a heartbeat that didn't belong to any living thing. I opened the notebook with trembling fingers. The first page still had my angry entry, my handwriting, but above it, above my words, was that other voice, that museum voice, written in the same ink, the same hand. I traced the letters with my finger. "I work in museum collections." I swallowed hard and flipped forward. The pages that should have been blank weren't. There were lines, faint, like they'd been written in pencil and then erased, then overwritten by time. I could barely make them out, but my stomach tightened when I recognized phrases. "As soon as I'm healed up." That was my first entry. But beneath it, faint as a bruise, were other words. Future words. Words I hadn't written yet. I held the page closer to the light, squinting. Asked for another scan. "Will take a few days." I jerked the notebook away like it had bitten me. My heart hammered. This wasn't just a journal. It was layered, like time had pressed multiple versions of it together, ink bleeding through years. I sat up too fast, and pain flared in my chest. I gasped and gritted my teeth. Outside, someone screamed. Not a dramatic scream. A raw, tearing sound that broke halfway through like the body couldn't sustain it. I pressed my palm to my face and forced myself not to lose it. Okay. If this was real, if I was actually in 1914, then the only thing I had, the only thing that connected me to anything else was this notebook. And it was telling me, in its own sick way, that someone in the future would read it, that it would survive. That meant I might not. The thought made bile rise in my throat. I wiped sweat off my upper lip and stared at the page until the letters blurred. Then I did the only thing I could do. I wrote. I wrote everything. The doctor, the priest, the carts of limbs, the hate in the soldier's eyes, the museum voice on the page. I wrote until my hand cramped. I wrote until the candle stub they'd left near my cot burned low and guttered. At some point, a nurse came in and shoved a tin cup in my mouth. Water tasted like iron. She checked my bandage with brisk, rough fingers and muttered something in French that sounded like "lucky bastard" without any warmth. I tried to ask her where my clothes were. My phone, my wallet, anything. She stared at me blankly like I'd asked her to explain the moon. "Tes affairs," she repeated. "Your things." "Yes," I said. "My stuff. The things I had on me." She shrugged. "Brule," she said. "Burned." I sat up despite the pain. "What do you mean burned?" She gestured vaguely toward outside, toward the endless churn of camp life. Everything dirty, she said, impatient. 'Cause we burn. You want lice? You want. She made a scratching motion with her fingers and grimaced. No, I said, because I'd seen enough men outside picking at their seams like their skin was trying to crawl away. But my stomach tightened anyway. My phone, gone. My modern boots, gone. My proof, gone. Only the notebook remained. And the notebook was compromised in a way I couldn't explain. Night fell without ceremony. The temperature dropped and my breath started coming out in thin fog. Somewhere out in the dark, men sang quietly. A hymn, maybe, or just something to keep from thinking. I lay on my cot, staring at the tent seam where moonlight leaked through, and tried not to imagine the trench again. The brace with the lightning crack. My marker. My safe place in a fake war. The artillery never stopped. At some point, exhaustion dragged me down despite everything. I dreamed of the eclipse. In the dream, the sun didn't come back. The world stayed in that flat, drained gray. Men moved like puppets through smoke. Every time I blinked, their positions jumped like a film skipping frames. And in the middle of it all, beyond the no man's land, beyond the trench lip, there was a line of people standing in perfect stillness, watching. Spectators. They didn't wear modern clothes. They were nothing I recognized. Their faces were pale ovals with no features, like masks left blank. And they were all holding notebooks. When I jolted awake, my throat was raw and my cot was damp with sweat. For a second, the tent was quiet. Then a scream ripped through the camp, and the quiet shattered. I sat up, heart hammering, and listened. Not a wounded man scream. A panic scream. Boots pounded outside. Someone shouted orders. Another boom rolled through the ground, closer this time. I shoved my legs over the side of the cot and immediately swayed, dizzy. Pain flared in my shoulder and chest. I gritted my teeth and stood anyway because the air inside the tent suddenly felt too thin. The flap burst open and a soldier stumbled in. His face was streaked with mud and sweat. His eyes were wide. Las buchas, ellat. The Germans. He grabbed something, bandages, maybe, then bolted out again. A nurse shoved past me, swearing under her breath, and ran toward the tent line. I stood there like an idiot, swaying, trying to process the idea that the front could move, that this camp wasn't a safe backline stage. Then the world outside flashed bright for a second, like lightning, but lower, closer, and the sound hit a heartbeat later. A shell, close enough that the tent canvas snapped and dust rained down. Men shouted. Someone yelled to move the wounded. Another voice screamed not to move anyone. It was chaos, and in the chaos, nobody was watching me. My breath came in short bursts. I took a step toward the flap, then another, moving like an old man, one hand pressed to my chest bandage. Outside, the camp was erupting. Lanterns swung. Shadows jittered. Men ran in all directions, colliding, shouting, hauling stretchers. Another flash, another boom, closer again. My ears rang. I saw, for a split second through the trees, a bright orange blossom of fire. The Germans were shelling the field hospital. Or whoever. It didn't matter. This wasn't a controlled event. This was a world that did not care where you were supposed to be. My mind did something strange then. It tried to overlay my rehearsal map on top of what I was seeing. Forest edge, clearing, trench line, and it fit. Not perfectly, but enough to make my stomach turn. I knew this place. I knew where the trench should be. If I could get there, if I could find the brace with the lightning crack, maybe I could find the point where things went wrong. Maybe I could find the seam. Maybe I could go back. It was insane, but it was the only plan my brain could generate that wasn't wait here and die. Another shell hit somewhere behind the tents, and a spray of mud and canvas erupted. Men screamed. A horse shrieked, a horrible sound, and then cut off abruptly. I didn't think anymore. I moved. I ducked between tents, keeping low. The sling made me clumsy, off balance. Every jolt sent pain stabbing through my shoulder. I nearly tripped over a stretcher where a man lay motionless, eyes open, staring at nothing. I didn't stop. I couldn't. Someone grabbed my arm. I twisted, panicked, ready to fight. It was the priest. His face was lit by lantern light, making him look carved out of wax. His eyes were sharp now, awake. "Where are you going?" he demanded. "Out," I said, breathless. "You cannot." "I can," I snapped. "I'm not staying here to get blown apart in a tent." His grip tightened. "You will be shot as a deserter." "I don't care," I said. And then, because honesty spilled out when fear burned through me, "I'm not from here. I don't have a place in this. I'm not dying for your war." For a second, something flickered in his expression. Anger, maybe, or understanding. Then another shell boomed and the ground lurched. He flinched and his grip loosened. "Listen," he said, voice urgent. "If you run into the forest, you will meet Germans. You will be taken. They will not be kind." "I already got shot by one," I snapped. He looked at me hard. "You must go to the rear," he said, "toward Bouillon. Away." "There is no rear," I said, and yanked my arm free. He reached for me again, but a stretcher team barreled past, yelling, and I had to step back. I ran, or what passed for running, with a shattered shoulder and lungs that burned. I plunged into the trees, away from the tent lights, away from the screams, moving by instinct and half-remembered rehearsal routes. The forest swallowed me fast. Branches clawed at my face. Roots snagged my boots. The ground was uneven, slick with damp leaves and churn mud. Behind me, the camp noise faded into muffled chaos. Ahead, darkness. And then, through the trees, a faint orange flicker, like distant fire. I slowed, crouching, listening. Voices drifted on the night air. German? French? I couldn't tell at first. Then I heard English. Not accented. Not careful. Swear to God, this is fucking insane. I froze. My heart hammered so hard it hurt. I crept forward, pushing aside a branch with my good hand. In a small hollow between trees, lit by a stolen lantern, for men crouched around a muddy map. And I recognized them. Not by face at first. Faces look different when they're smeared with fear and mud and lit from below. But by posture, by the way one of them held his rifle like it was still a prop, not quite trusting its weight. One of them looked up sharply, lantern light catching his eyes. "Who's there?" he hissed. My mouth went dry. "Eli," I said, because his name popped in my head like a life raft. The man's face shifted. "Holy shit," he breathed. "It's you." My knees nearly buckled with relief, so intense it made me dizzy. I stumbled forward. They surged up, half threatening, half desperate, and then hands grabbed me, steadying me. "Jesus Christ," Eli whispered, staring at my sling. "They got you too." "Two," I rasped. "What do you mean two?" Another man, taller, blonde hair plastered his forehead with sweat, laughed, a broken sound. "Welcome to the fucking show," he said. "Except there's no show. There's no anything. It's just this." I stared at them, my chest tight. They were wearing French uniforms. Real ones, not reproduction. Their faces were streaked with grime. One of them had blood on his sleeve that looked fresh. You're real," I managed. "Ili torkid allowed." "Yeah," he said. "So are the bullets." My vision tunneled. "What happened?" I demanded. "After I got hit, I woke up in a field hospital," Eli said, nodding fast. "Yeah, same. Except they didn't give me morphine. They just slapped me and told me to stop whining." The blonde guy spat. "They think we're cowards," he said. "Or spies. They stripped my fucking undershirt and burned it." Another man, shorter, dark hair, eyes wild, grabbed my notebook hand. "You still have it," he said, staring at the journal like it was holy. "You still have the book." I flinched. "What do you mean still?" He looked at Eli like he didn't want to say it. Eli swallowed, then said, "Because it changes." My skin prickled. "Yeah," I whispered. "I saw." Eli leaned closer, voice low and fierce. "We need to get back," he said. "We need to find the trench. The one with the brace. The lightning crack." My breath caught. "You remember that too?" Eli nodded hard. It's like our brains won't let go of the markers," he said. Like if we follow the script hard enough, it'll snap us back. The blonde guy snorted. Or it'll get us killed, he said, because the script doesn't include artillery that takes your face off. Eli rounded on him. Then what the fuck do you suggest? He snapped. We sit here and wait? We can't go rear. There's Germans everywhere. The hospital got hit. The roads are full of wounded. We're stuck. The dark-haired man's hand shook. I saw someone I know, he whispered. Eli's gaze snapped to him. Who? He swallowed. Danny, he said. The munitions guy. My stomach lurched. No, I said immediately, because Danny was a safety officer in my head, a guy who complained about powder loads, a person who belonged in a modern world. The man nodded frantically. I swear, he said. He was in a trench, but he wasn't Danny. He was bleeding, and he looked at me like he didn't know me. The blonde guy cursed. Because maybe it's not fucking us, he said. Maybe it's echoes. Maybe they're real soldiers and we're just... Don't, Eli snapped, voice cracking. Don't say that. I stood there, swaying, trying to absorb this. The horror of being alone had been bad. The horror of not being alone, of having witnesses, of realizing this wasn't a private nightmare. That was worse. How many of us? I asked. Eli's face tightened. 8, he said. 8 made it to the hospital. I don't know about the rest. Rest is in... My throat tightened. Eli didn't answer immediately. The blonde guy did, blunt and cruel like ripping off a bandage. Dead, he said. Or missing. Or whatever the fuck happens when you fall in the mud and no one calls cut. My stomach turned. I looked around the hollow, at the trees, at the mud, at these men I'd known as co-workers and hobbyists, now turned into frightened animals. What do we do? I whispered. Eli's eyes flicked to my notebook again. We follow it, he said. We follow the rhythm. We get to the trench. We find a marker. We wait for the eclipse moment. It already happened, I said, voice cracking. Did it? Eli asked, and there was something in his tone that made my skin crawl. Because I don't think time's working right. The dark-haired man nodded fast. It jumps, he whispered, like skipping frames. I was running, and then I was somewhere else. Like the forest moved. My mouth went dry. I remembered that sensation from before. The jerkiness, the sense that moments didn't resolve. Eli leaned closer, voice urgent. Listen, he said. We found a trench line once. But it wasn't ours. Not exactly. It had the brace, but the crack was different. Like someone carved it deeper. Like it wanted us to recognize it. A chill crawled up my spine. The blonde guy rubbed his face with shaking hands. And when we got there, he muttered, there were bodies in the trench. Bodies that looked like us. Ilias Yov Klinshith. We left, he said quickly. We ran. But we can't just keep running. The Germans are moving. The French line is collapsing. We're going to get swept up no matter what. He pointed at my sling. You can't fight, he said. Not like this. I wasn't planning to. I snapped, then immediately felt stupid because what did planning matter now? Eli's gaze flicked to my eyes. But you can write, he said. You can keep the record. The book, it matters. It's the only thing that feels anchored. I swallowed hard. Great, I whispered. So I'm the fucking historian now. The dark-haired man made a small, broken sound that might have been a laugh. Better than being the corpse, he muttered. Eli straightened, decision hardening in his posture the way it did in rehearsals when someone finally called the line. We move, he said. Now, before daylight, before they find us. The blonde guy cursed again, but didn't argue. They doused the lantern, plunging us into near darkness. Only moonlight filtered through leaves, a weak silver. Eli touched my shoulder gently, careful of the sling. Stay close, he whispered. No heroes cheat. I'm not a hero, I muttered. Good, he said. Heroes die first. We moved through the forest in a staggered line, silent, listening for voices that weren't ours. Every snapping twig made my heart slam into my ribs. Twice we dropped to the ground as distant voices drifted through the trees. German, I thought, harsh consonants. Once, a flare went up somewhere ahead, casting the forest in eerie white light and freezing us like animals. In that flare light, I saw something that made my breath catch. A body hanging from a branch, not hung by a rope, caught like it had been thrown there by an explosion, limbs tangled. The face was turned toward us, mouth open, eyes wide. Mud caked the cheeks. For a split second, I thought it was someone I knew. Then the light died and the forest swallowed it again. We kept moving. Time did weird things. I don't know how else to say it. At one point, we crept down a slope toward a shallow stream. The same kind of stream we'd crossed in the reenactment, the one meant to stand in for tributaries. Moonlight glittered on stones. I blinked, and suddenly it was daylight. Not full day. That strange flat eclipse day light where colors looked drained. I stumbled, disoriented, and Eli grabbed my elbow hard. "You felt that?" he hissed. My mouth was dry. "Yeah," I whispered. The blonde guy swore under his breath. "We just lost hours," he muttered. "Or gained them." I couldn't tell. The stream was exactly where it should be. The stones under the water looked familiar, like I'd stepped on them in rehearsal. My skin prickled. We crossed, boots slipping, water shockingly cold, and climbed the far bank. Ahead, through the thinning trees, I saw open ground. No man's land. My stomach tightened. "Eclipse thieving." "There," he whispered, and there it was. The trench line, a dark gash in the earth, reinforced with timber and sandbags. It looked wrong, not too clean, too heavy, like it had been carved by something that hated the people who dug it. We approached low, scanning for movement. The air smelled of smoke and damp earth, and something else, something coppery. Blood. Eli slid down into the trench first, rifle clutched like a talisman. The blonde guy followed, then the others one by one. When my turn came, I hesitated at the lip, staring down into the dark. The trench was deeper than in the reenactment. The walls were slick with mud. Water pooled at the bottom, black and stagnant. Eli held a hand up. "Careful," he whispered. "There are things." "What things?" I hissed, but he didn't answer. I lowered myself and awkwardly, pain flaring, and dropped into ankle-deep cold water. The shock made me gasp. Eli grabbed my arm to steady me. "Quiet," he breathed. I clamped my mouth shut. We moved down the trench, stepping over duckboards, puddles, broken gear. And then I saw what he meant. Bodies. Not a pile. Not one or two. Bodies slumped along the trench wall like discarded coats. French uniforms. Mud-caked faces. Some were missing parts. Some were just wrong. One man sat upright, back against the trench wall, helmet still on, chin tucked. For a second, from the angle, he looked like he was resting. Then I saw his throat. Gone. Not cut. Removed. Like something had scooped it out. He swallowed bile. The blonde guy's breathing got ragged. "Jesus," he whispered. Eli motioned for silence and kept moving. We passed another body face down in the water, one arm outstretched like it was trying to crawl. The fingers were white and bloated. A rat skittered across the duckboard, bold, fat, unafraid. My skin crawled. Then ahead I saw it. The timber brace. Halfway down the trench, a thick wooden support beam. And on it, my marker. The crack like lightning. Except, Eli had been right. It was deeper. Not just a crack. Carved, gouged, as if someone had taken a blade and traced the shape, making it deliberate. And the shape wasn't exactly lightning anymore. It looked like a branching vein, or a river delta. My breath caught. Eli stopped beside it, staring. "It wants us to know," he whispered. The dark-haired man made a small, whimpering sound. "We shouldn't be here," he hissed. Eli turned on him, eyes fierce. "Where else?" he snapped. "Tell me where else." The man shook his head, tears cutting lines through mud. "I don't know," he whispered. "I don't know." Eli's shoulders sagged slightly, then squared again. "Okay," he said, voice low. "Okay, we stick to the script. We hold here. We count. We wait for the moment." "The moment already happened," the blonde guy muttered. Eli's eyes flicked toward the trench lip, toward the washed-out sky above. "Did it?" he said again. and there was something haunted in his tone. I stared at the carved crack. My notebook felt heavy in my hand. I wanted to run. I wanted to climb out of the trench and sprint until my lungs burst, until I hit something modern, something real, something safe. But the trench walls hemmed us in like a throat. And above, the sky looked wrong. The light was dimming again. Not night dimming, eclipse dimming. Shadows sharpened, colors drained. The air got colder. Eli's eyes widened. "You see," he whispered. "You see it." My heart hammered. The dark-haired man started shaking. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no." The blonde guy grabbed his arm hard. "Shut up," he hissed. "Shut the fuck up." The light kept dying. And then, just like before, the forest went still. No birds, no wind. Even the distant artillery seemed to hold its breath. The silence was so complete it made my ears ring. Eli raised his hand, the old rehearsal gesture. "Hold." We held. Water lapped faintly around our ankles. Somewhere down the trench, a rat squeaked. I stared at the carved crack until my eyes watered. And in that stretched, impossible quiet, I heard something that didn't belong. Not a shout, not artillery, a murmur, like a crowd. Faint, distant, carried on air that shouldn't carry sound. My skin went cold. Eli's eyes flicked toward me. "You hear that?" he whispered, not a question. I swallowed hard. "It's people," I whispered back. The murmur swelled slightly, then faded, like a wave pulling back. Then the darkness hit full, sudden and total, like someone threw a blanket over the sun. And in that pitch, someone in the trench, one of the bodies we'd stepped over, moved. I saw it by feel more than sight. A shift in the water, a soft scrape of cloth. The dark-haired man gasped. Eli snapped his rifle up, trembling. The trench was so dark I couldn't see my own hands. Then, somewhere close, too close, something breathed. Not a human breath, not lungs. A wet, patient exhale like something that had been underwater and just surfaced. The hairs on my arms stood up. The blonde guy whispered, barely audible, "What the fuck?" And then a voice, right beside my ear, spoke in calm, familiar English. "You're standing in the wrong place." My blood turned to ice. Because I knew that voice. It was mine. My own voice in the dark didn't sound like it does in my head. It sounded older, drier, like someone who'd screamed too many times and learned to keep the rest of it locked down. "You're standing the wrong place," it whispered again, right at my ear. I couldn't move. My feet were glued to the trench water. My skin prickled so hard it hurt. My heart was trying to climb out through my throat. Eli hissed. "Who said that?" The blonde guy, Mark, I remembered his name like it arrived late, swung his rifle toward the sound and nearly clocked me with the barrel. "Don't point that at me." I snapped automatically, even though I couldn't see him. "Then who the fuck?" Mark started. The wet exhale came again. Close, patient, like something hovering just behind the thin wall of my spine. And then the thing that broke me wasn't the breath or the darkness. It was the smell. Cold river mud, old pennies, the sour edge of someone's sweat after days in wet wool. And underneath it, faintly, the same bitter chemical taste I'd had when the eclipse first hit. My own smell. "You have to move," my voice said. "One step left." "Now," Eli whispered. "Is that you?" My throat clenched so tight it squeaked. "That's not me," I said, but it came out as a rasp. "I'm right here." "2 steps," my voice insisted, sharper. "Left." "You're on the dip." "You're on the dip where you?" A distant boom rolled under the silence, like thunder trying not to wake someone. The trench shivered. Water rippled around my boots. Mark swore. "The barrage." "It's coming," my voice said. "You've got." The darkness wasn't just darkness anymore. It had shape. The kind of shape you notice when you can't see it, like pressure behind your eyes, like something leaning in. I did the only thing I could do. I moved. 1 step left. My boots slid on duckboards. Cold water splashed my shin. My shoulder screamed in pain from the sudden shift, but I bit it down. Another step. Something brushed my sleeve. Not a hand. Not cloth. Something soft and slick, like wet hair drifting in water. I jerked back and my spine hit the trench wall. "Don't touch me." I snapped into the dark like that meant anything. My voice, my not me voice, said, "Good. Hold there. Don't look down." "Why?" Illy demanded. "Because if you look down, I thought you'll see." A flash split the world. Not the sun, not the eclipse. A muzzle flash, close and bright, like someone fired right in the trench. Mark yelled and ducked. Eli fired a shot blindly upward, and the rifle crack echoed off mud walls like a slap. Then the real barrage hit, like someone finally let the world inhale. Shells thudded in the distance, then closer, then close enough that the trench shook and dirt rained down. The air filled with that choking, burned metal taste. And in that chaos, the silence didn't fully break. It was like we were hearing two layers at once. The war and the wrongness riding on top of it, a thin film that wouldn't tear. My voice shouted, suddenly loud, "Down, down, don't stand. I'm already down." I screamed back, half out of fear, half out of fury, because I hated being told what to do by myself. Eli grabbed my sleeve in the dark and yanked me hard toward the trench wall. "Get your head down," he barked. "I can't fucking see." Mark yelled. Something hit the trench lip and exploded, and for a second the world went white. In that white, I saw it. I saw what was beside me. A man crouched in the trench water, pressed up against the wall, close enough that his shoulder touched mine. He wore my uniform, my sling, my bandage. His face was mine. Same jaw, same nose, but wrong around the eyes. The eyes looked like they'd been open too long. The skin looked thin and gray, like it hadn't seen real sleep in weeks. And his mouth was moving in sync with the words I'd been hearing. Then the white died and the trench went dark again, and the image burned behind my eyes like I'd stared at the sun. I made a sound I'm not proud of. A broken little gasp that turned into a half sob. Eli shouted, "What is it? What did you see?" I couldn't answer. My tongue didn't work. The barrage kept pounding, closer now. The trench trembled like an animal trying to shake something off. My voice, my double, said, "It started. It's always started. Don't waste this. Don't argue. Don't." A body in the trench lurched again. I heard water slosh, cloth scrape, a low grunt. Mark screamed, "Something's moving." Eli fired again. Muzzle flash lighting the trench in brief bursts. Each flash gave me snapshots. Mud walls, water, Eli's clenched face, Mark's wide eyes, and bodies. Bodies that were not where they'd been a minute ago. One of the dead men was closer now, crawling through the water like a slow nightmare. His hands were pale and bloated. His mouth was open, working like he was breathing underwater. And behind him, another body shifted, propping itself up with a wet, sucking sound. Eli's voice cracked. "No, no, no." My double said, low and urgent, "Don't shoot them." Mark shrieked, "Why the fuck not?" "Because they're not." My double started. A shell hit somewhere close enough that the trench wall bulged inward and mud slapped my face. The air went out of my lungs in a grunt. When I sucked breath back in, it tasted like pennies and smoke. In that thick chaos, I felt something clamp around my ankle. I looked down before I could stop myself. I saw a hand. Not gloved, not skeletal. A normal human hand. White from water, fingernails black with mud, wrapped around my boot. The wrist disappeared under the trench water. Then the hand tightened, and it pulled. I screamed. Not theatrical, real ugly. I grabbed the trench wall with my good hand and clawed for purchase. Pain tore through my shoulder, and I nearly blacked out. Eli grabbed my coat. Mark grabbed my belt. They both yanked. The hand didn't let go. It was strong in that slow, drowning way, like something that doesn't care how long it takes. My double's voice was right in my ear again, furious now. "Don't let it take you. If it takes you, you don't come back the same." "Shut up." I screamed at it, even as I fought the pull. Eli yelled, "Kick it, kick it." I kicked blindly with my free leg, heel smashing into water, hitting something soft. The hand loosened for a fraction, then clamped harder. Mark was sobbing, "Pull him, pull him." Another flash, Eli firing, lit the trench, and I saw, under the water, a face. Just under the surface. Eyes open. Mouth working. It was my face. Not the double crouch beside me. Another one. Under the water, like a reflection that refused to stay flat. I felt my stomach flip. The hand yanked again and I slid, boot dragging, water rushing around my calf. Cold shot up my leg like electricity. Eli snarled something in French, real French, panicked and messy, and jammed the butt of his rifle down toward my ankle, smashing into the hand. The hand jerked, fingers loosened. I kicked again, hard, and the grip broke. My foot came free with a wet pop, and I slammed back into the trench wall, chest heaving, throat raw. For a second, everything stilled. Even the barrage seemed to hesitate. Then the trench water rippled, and that underwater face drifted away like it had never been there. Mark was panting like he'd run miles. Eli leaned close, voice shaking. What the fuck is happening? I opened my mouth, and nothing came out but a ragged breath. My double said, calmer now, almost resigned, "You looked down?" "Fuck you," I whispered, and it came out more like a plea than an insult. Another shell boomed. Dirt rained. The world remembered itself. Eli grabbed my collar. "We have to get out. Now." Mark nodded violently. Yes. Out. My double's hand, because I felt it now, cold fingers on my wrist, squeezed once. "Not yet," it whispered. "If you leave now, you miss it. You miss the only seam." Eli snarled. "Who are you talking to?" I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes from smoke and fear. "No one," I lied, because what the hell else could I say? The trench shook again. Somewhere overhead, men screamed. The battle was moving around us, alive and indifferent. Eli said, "We go. We find cover." My double said, "Hold." 30 seconds. Then up. Mark snapped, "Stop fucking whispering. Tell us what you know." I turned toward where I'd seen the double crouching, but the darkness swallowed everything. I could only hear my own breath and the distant pounding. I hissed. "He says it says, wait." 30 seconds. Eli stared at me like he wanted to slap me. "Who says?" he demanded. "Me." I spat and hated how insane it sounded. Mark laughed, sharp and hysterical. "Oh, perfect. The haunted trench is giving you instructions now." Eli grabbed Mark's sleeve. "Enough." Mark yanked free. "No, I'm done with this. I'm done. I'm not dying in a fucking mud hole because you want to follow a script." He turned toward the trench ladder, just a muddy incline with boards, and started scrambling up. "Mark!" Eli solteth. Mark didn't stop. The barrage hit the lip again. Dirt sprayed. Mark slipped, caught himself, kept climbing. Eli lunged for him, but he was too late. Mark popped up above the trench line for half a second. There was a crack, not artillery, not shell, not a boom. A rifle crack. Mark's body snapped backward like a puppet with its string cut. He fell into the trench in a dead weight, splashing water up to our knees. Eli caught him, shouting his name, shaking him. Mark's eyes were open, staring at the trench ceiling. His mouth opened and closed once like a fish. Blood bubbled at his lips. I clapped my good hand over my own mouth to keep from making sound. Eli pressed a hand to Mark's chest, then jerked it back. Blood. Warm. "Fuck." Eli whispered, voice breaking. "Fuck." Mark's gaze flicked toward me, unfocused. His lips moved. I leaned in, stupidly, like I could catch his last words. He whispered, barely audible. I heard them clapping. Then his eyes went glassy, and he went still. Eli made a sound like he'd been punched. My double whispered, right at my ear, "That's why you don't stand in the wrong place." I shook, hard, teeth chattering. "You knew." I whispered. "You fucking knew." "It's already happened," my double said. "That's the problem. It's already happened so many times you can taste it." Eli's voice was raw. "We have to move. We have to." He looked at me, eyes wild. "What did Mark mean?" he demanded. "Clapping?" "What clapping?" My throat closed. I could hear it now, faint under the barrage, like a crowd far away, muffled by distance. A murmur, then a soft, rhythmic sound. Hands. Applause. It rose and fell like waves, never fully present, never fully gone. Eli's face drained. "No," he whispered. "No, no, that's not." My double said they love this part. Eli's mouth opened, but nothing came out. The light shifted again. The eclipse darkness started thinning, not in a normal day, but into that sick, flat half-light where everything looks like an old photograph. Colors bled back in slowly. The trench walls gained texture. Smoke drifted overhead. And with the return of light came something worse, clarity. Because now I could see that the bodies in the trench weren't just random French dead. Some of them had my face. Not all of them. Not enough to be a coincidence. Enough. One lay slumped near the brace with a carved crack, head tilted, eyes open. His sling was on the wrong arm. His hair was longer. His mouth was stretched in a grimace like he'd died mid-scream. Eli followed my gaze and went very still. "Is that?" he started. I didn't answer. My tongue felt thick and useless. The trench water rippled again, gentle, like something moving under it without urgency. Eli's eyes flicked down, then back up quickly like he'd learned the same lesson I had. He swallowed hard. "Okay," he said, voice shaking but determined. "Okay, we get out. We get somewhere safe. We find the others. We," my double said, "write it." I laughed, a bitter bark that made my chest hurt. "Sure," I whispered. "I'll write it while we're getting shot at." "Write it now," my double insisted. "If you don't, you forget. You forget pieces. You forget names. You forget why you're scared. And then you do it again, and you do it wrong again." Eli grabbed my collar. "Stop spacing out. Move." I yanked my notebook up with my good hand, flipping it open with shaking fingers. The page was wet at the edges from trench water. Ink smeared where my thumb touched. I scribbled anyway, ugly, fast, barely legible. Mark climbed, shot, clapping, bodies with my face. Eli shouted, "Now." He hauled Mark's body up awkwardly, then let it drop with a strangled sound. There was no time, no dignity, just dead weight in a trench that wanted more. We moved. We scrambled along the trench line, ducking, slipping, stepping over bodies that shifted when our boots hit them. Once a hand twitched against my ankle and I nearly screamed again, but it was just a reflex, I told myself, just nerves, until the fingers curled and tried to grab. Eli kicked it away and hissed, "Don't look." We found a narrow dugout, half collapsed, reinforced with rotten boards, and shoved ourselves inside. The dugout smelled like wet wood and old shit. Water dripped from the ceiling in slow plinks. Eli pressed his back to the wall, breathing hard. I hunched in the corner, notebook clutched to my chest, trying to steady my shaking hand. Outside, the battle noise shifted away slightly. The barrage moved. The trench line creaked like it was settling. Eli stared at me in the dim. "You saw it," he said. "Tell me you saw it." I swallowed. "The bodies." Eli's eyes flicked to my notebook. And the clapping. I didn't want to say it out loud, saying it would give it weight. But the applause was still there, faint like distant surf. "Yes," I whispered. Eli squeezed his eyes shut. "This can't be real," he breathed. "It's real enough to kill Mark," I said, and my voice came out flat because I didn't have room for emotion yet. Emotion would drown me. Eli opened his eyes, angry now, scared angry. "So what?" He snapped. "You think we're dead? You think we're ghosts?" "I don't know what we are," I said. "But that trench, that thing, it's us. It's..." My double's voice, right behind my ear again, said softly, "It's the part they keep. Illy Gulin shit. There, you're doing it again. Who the fuck are you talking to?" I clenched my jaw. Eli leaned forward, voice low, dangerous. "If you know something, say it. If you're hearing things, say that. Because I'm not dying because you're too embarrassed to admit you're losing it." I stared at him, and the truth in his anger hit me. He wasn't being cruel. He was trying to stay alive. I swallowed hard. "There's another me," I said. "Illy Stareth." "A what?" "Another me," I repeated, and my voice cracked. "In the trench. In the dark." He was talking. He told me to move. Eli's face tightened like he'd bitten down on something. "No," he said immediately. like denying it could make it untrue. No, that's concussion talk. I laugh hollow. Yeah, sure. Concussion talk. Like the carved crack? Like Mark getting shot the second he stood up? Like the applause. Ilias terot bodeth. He looked away, jaw clenched. I whispered, he's still here. I can hear him. Silence stretched, broken only by dripping water. Then Eli said, quieter, what does he want? The question made my stomach knot. I listened, and the sick part was that I didn't have to strain. The double was always there, like the trench had put a hook in my brain. He wants me to write, I said. Eli's laugh was sharp. Of course he does. And he says if I don't, I forget, I added. Eli stared at my notebook like it was a bomb. Show me, he said. I hesitated. Eli's eyes hardened. Show me. So I turned the notebook and held it out. In the dim light, Eli squinted. He read the top lines, the museum voice, the part that didn't belong in my life. His face went pale. What the fuck, he whispered. I know, I said. He flipped a page. My entry from the hospital was there, my handwriting messy. Underneath it, faint, was something else. Eli's finger traced the faint lines like he couldn't help it. It's like he murmured, like someone wrote over it. Like time, I whispered. Eli looked up, eyes wet. We're going to die, he said, flat and sudden. We're going to die here. My throat tightened. My double whispered, some of you do, some of you don't. Not the way you think. Eli flinched again, and this time he didn't deny it. He just whispered, I heard that. My blood went cold. You heard him? Eli nodded slowly, like it hurt. Not words, he said. Not clear, but something, like a thought that isn't mine. My double's voice sighed. Good. Maybe you'll stop wasting time. Eli's hand shook as he handed the notebook back. Okay, he said, voice low. Okay, we can't trust the trench. We can't trust time, but we could trust this. The book. The book doesn't stop bullets, I muttered. No, Eli agreed. But it might be the only thing that makes this make sense. Outside, the barrage was fading. The battle was shifting away, leaving behind the aftersounds. Distant shouts, sporadic rifle cracks, the low moan of wind through trees. Eli wiped his face with a muddy sleeve. We have to find the others, he said. I nodded, because what else could I do? We waited until the noise outside thinned enough to risk moving. When we crawled out of the dugout, the light had fully returned, but it wasn't normal day. It was that washed-out, post-eclipse daylight that made everything feel like it had been dipped in ash. Smoke drifted over no man's land in slow sheets. The trench line was littered with bodies, some old, some fresh. Mark lay where we'd left him, face turned to the side, eyes open. A fly already crawled on his lip. Eli swallowed hard and looked away. We moved along the trench, low and quick, trying not to step in the deepest pools. At the brace with the carved crack, the air felt colder. My double's voice whispered, almost fondly, home. I ignored it. We climbed out of the trench on the far side, into the forest again, moving toward where Eli said he'd last seen the others. The forest was quieter now, but not safe quiet. That silence you get after violence, where the birds don't sing because they know better. We found the first of the others near a shallow crater, crouched behind a fallen log like hunted animals. Two men, both shaking. One had a cut on his cheek that looked fresh. The other's hands were stained red. When they saw Eli, relief hit their faces so hard it looked like pain. Where's Mark? One demanded immediately. Eli didn't answer. His silence answered for him. The man's mouth opened, then closed. He looked at the ground, blinking hard. The other man stared at me, eyes sharp. You, he said. You're the one with the book. I nodded slowly. He leaned in, voice low and cracked. It wrote my name. My stomach dropped. What? He swallowed, throat working. I didn't tell you my name, he whispered. I didn't tell anyone. But I looked over your shoulder earlier, before the hospital got hit, and I saw it. It wrote Harris on the page. Like it knew. Like it was counting. My skin prickled. My double's voice murmured. It counts the ones it keeps. I clenched my jaw so hard my teeth hurt. Eli's eyes flicked between us. Okay, he said, forcing control. How many are left? The man, Harris, held up 2 fingers, then hesitated, then held up 3. 3 besides us, he said. But one's not right. Eli's face tightened. What do you mean not right? Harris glanced toward the trees, like he expected something to step out. He keeps smiling, he whispered. A chill crawled up my spine. Mark had smiled a lot. In rehearsal, in a normal life. Smiling here meant something else. Eli's voice went hard. Where is he? Harris pointed. North, near the stream. We moved, keeping low, circling through trees. The forest shifted around us in subtle ways that made my stomach turn. Paths that should have been straight bent. A tree I swore we'd passed already appeared again. Same knot in its bark, same broken branch like a crooked finger. Time skipping, space folding, the Ardennes pulling itself inward. My double whispered, it's tightening. It knows you're trying. We found a stream again. Same stones, same cold water. And there he was, Danny, or what my brain insisted was Danny at first. Because the shape was right, broad shoulders, the way he held himself like he always wanted to argue with someone. He crouched by the stream, hands in the water, washing them over and over. He looked up as we approached, and he smiled. Not a friendly smile, not relief. A slow, wrong smile that didn't reach his eyes. Eli raised his rifle without thinking. Danny, Eli said cautiously. The man's eyes flicked to the rifle, then back to Eli's face. He smiled wider. Hey, he said in perfect modern English, like we were back at rehearsal. Like the world hadn't ended. You guys are late. The eclipse already started. Harris whispered, see? My skin crawled. Eli's voice was tight. Danny, what the fuck is going on? Danny's gaze slid to me, to my notebook. His smile sharpened. Oh, he said softly, you're writing again. I felt a coldness sink into my stomach. I'm not Danny, I said, and my voice shook. Danny laughed, light, almost amused. No, he agreed. You're not. Eli took a step forward, rifle steady. Danny, he said again, slower, like talking to an animal. Where are the others? Danny looked back down at his hands in the water. They're where they're supposed to be, he said cheerfully. Some of them are. The rest are improvising. He looked up, smile still there. And you know what happens when you improvise. Harris made a small sound in his throat. Eli's finger tightened on the trigger. Danny, he said, voice shaking with rage now. If this is a joke, I swear to God I'll... Danny's smile faded slightly, like he was bored. It's not a joke, he said. It's a performance. My double whispered, almost lovingly, there it is. Eli snapped. Who are you? Danny tilted his head. I'm the one who keeps the rhythm, he said. I'm the one who makes sure you hit your marks. Eli's face twisted. You're not making sense. Danny shrugged. You don't have to understand it. You just have to do it. He nodded toward the stream. Cross, he said. Eli barked, why? Danny smiled again. Because if you cross at the right time, he said, you end up back where you started. My heart pounded. Eli's eyes flicked to me. He's talking about the trench. Danny's gaze stayed on my notebook. You've been writing about the trench, he said, but you still don't get it. The trench isn't where it starts. It's where it ends. Harris whispered, shut up. Danny laughed softly. You can't shut me up, he said. I'm in the book. I felt my throat go dry. Are you one of us? I whispered. Danny's smile flickered. For a while, he said. A long while. Harris's face went pale. How long? Ili demanded. Danny looked up at the sky like he was checking the light. How many eclipses do you think you can fit inside one day? He asked. My stomach lurched. Eli snapped. Answer me. Danny looked back at Eli, and for the first time his eyes looked tired. You don't want the number, he said quietly. It makes people do stupid things. Harris shook his head, whispering, no, no, no. Danny's gaze returned to me. You brought the book, he said. Good. You're the only one who ever does. I swallowed hard. What do you mean, ever? Danny's smile sharpened again. I mean, you always want a record, he said. Even when it's killing you, my double murmured. Because you still think someone will pull the curtain back. My skin prickled. Eli stepped closer, rifle still up. "Enough," he snapped. "Tell us how to get out." Danny's smile widened, bright and wrong. "You can't get out," he said. "Not the way you want." Eli's voice cracked with fury. "Then how?" Danny's gaze flicked toward the trees behind us. "There's a place," he said. "A hollow. A burnout farmhouse. You go there when the light goes wrong. You wait. You don't move. You don't talk. And when you hear the clapping, you don't listen." Harris started shaking harder. "Ilias Yov clincheth." And then Danny shrugged again. "Then you wake up," he said lightly. "Or you don't." Eli's finger tightened on the trigger. I grabbed his sleeve with my good hand hard. "Don't," I whispered. Eli glared at me. "Why the fuck not? Look at him." Danny smiled, unbothered. My double whispered, "If you shoot him, you shoot yourself." "Not now. Not like that." Eli's hand trembled. Danny's smile turned pitying. "You're always so angry," he said softly. "It doesn't help." Eli snarled, "Shut the fuck up." Danny's eyes flicked toward the stream again. "The light's going to slip," he said. "You can feel it, right? That little jerk in your stomach?" And as if the world took offense at being described, my vision stuttered. For a split second, the forest shifted. The leaves seemed sharper. The shadows deepened. Time hiccuped. Harris whimpered. Danny's smile widened. "There," he said. "It's starting." Eli's breath came fast. "What do we do?" Danny nodded toward the water again. "Cross," he said, "if you want a chance. If you want to find a farmhouse before the seam closes." Eli stared at Danny like he wanted to kill him with his eyes alone. Then Eli grabbed my sleeve and yanked me toward the stream. "Move," he hissed. Harris and the other two followed, stumbling. The water was cold enough to bite. Stones slipped under our boots. Halfway across, the light changed again, flat, sick, eclipse light. My stomach lurched like a drop in an elevator. For a second, I heard it. The applause. Closer now. Louder. Like hands clapping just beyond the trees, just out of sight. Harris made a small choking sound. "Don't listen," Eli barked. But it was impossible not to. The sound crawled into your ears, into your teeth, into the back of your skull. It wasn't excited applause. It was measured, patient, like an audience that had seen this scene 100 times and still wanted it played right. We stumbled out of the stream and into the forest again, pushing through brush, moving toward where Danny had gestured. Behind us, Danny's voice drifted, cheerful as a tour guide. "Don't forget to write," he called. I didn't look back. We moved fast, ignoring pain, ignoring exhaustion. The forest folded around us like a closing hand. At one point, I saw a flash of white between trees, a line of people standing still, faceless like my dream, watching. I blinked and they were gone. Harris started sobbing quietly. Eli hissed, "If you make noise, I swear." "I can't," Harris choked. "I can't." Eli grabbed him by the collar and shoved him forward. "You can," he snapped. "You have to." We found a farmhouse as the light dimmed again. It wasn't just burnt out. It was hollowed, like something had eaten it from the inside. Blackened beams stuck up like ribs. The roof was gone. The walls were half collapsed. Inside, the air smelled like old soot and damp rot. We rushed in and crouched among broken boards and ash. Eli hissed. Everyone quiet. No talking. No moving. Harris's sobs turned into trembling breaths. The other men stared at the doorway like animals waiting for a predator. I clutched my notebook, wanting to write, terrified to make a sound. My double whispered now. I froze. Eli's eyes narrowed at me. "What?" I didn't answer. Outside, the forest went still again. That unnatural stillness. The eclipse darkness deepened, like night swallowing day. Then the applause started, louder now, right outside the farmhouse. Hands clapping in the dark. Slow at first, then faster, then stopping, as if waiting for something. Harris covered his ears and rocked. Eli's jaw clenched so hard his face trembled. The doorway, just a jagged gap in the burnt wall, framed nothing but darkness. Then a figure stepped into that darkness. A French soldier, silhouetted. rifle in hand. He stood perfectly still, like he'd hit a mark on stage. My stomach dropped, because even in silhouette, I knew that posture. I knew how he held his shoulders. I knew the shape of his head. It was Eli, not my Eli. Eli was crouched beside me, sweating and shaking. But the figure in the doorway had Eli's shape. The figure turned its head slowly, like it was looking at an audience. Then it spoke in Eli's voice, calm and clear. As soon as I'm healed up, I'm going straight to my unit commander and letting him have it. Harris made a strangled noise. Eli vispred garali audiole. No, the figure took one step forward into the farmhouse. In the brief edge of Eclipse light, I saw his face. Eli's face. But the eyes were wrong, washed out, pale like the color had been drained. The mouth smiled slightly, like he was amused. He spoke again, still in Eli's voice, reciting. This has been by far the most dangerous and unprofessional troop I've ever seen. My breath caught. It was my first entry. The figure was reading it, performing it. The applause outside rose, excited now, like the audience recognized a favorite line. Eli's hand shook. Don't, my double whispered. Don't engage. Don't give it your attention. Eli's throat worked. The Eli figure stepped closer, boots crunching on ash. He tilted his head and looked directly at me. Not at Eli beside me. At me. His smile widened. You're late, he said in my voice now, but you always show up. My blood went cold. The other men started whispering in panic. Harris choked. It's us. The Eli figure snapped his head toward Harris and the smile vanished. Quiet, he said, and his voice wasn't Eli's anymore. It wasn't even human. It was layered, multiple voices stacked, like a crowd speaking through one mouth. Harris froze. The applause outside stopped abruptly, as if the audience was holding its breath. Eli crouched lower, whispering to me, "What is it?" I couldn't answer. My tongue was glued to the roof of my mouth. The Eli figure stepped forward again. He raised his rifle slowly, not pointing it at us yet, just bringing it up like a threat in a rehearsal cue. Positions, he said softly in my double's older voice. Hit your marks. Elias dösti hitchet. Mark had said he heard clapping. Now I understood why. This performance, wanted us arranged the way it remembered, the way it had recorded, the way it could replay. My double whispered, urgent, right? Now, write the seam, write the instructions, or you lose them. My hand shook so hard the notebook rattled against my ribs. Eli hissed, "Don't move." The Eli figure's head snapped toward Eli. "Ah," it said in the priest's careful English. "The leader. Always the leader. Always the one who thinks he can negotiate." Eli's eyes widened. The thing smiled again, Eli's smile, but wrong. "You're not the first," it said gently. "You won't be the last." Harris started rocking again, whispering, "No, no, no." The Eli figure's rifle snapped up and pointed at Harris with lightning speed. Harris froze mid-rock. The figure's finger rested on the trigger. My stomach flipped. Eli whispered, "Don't." The figure smiled wider, teeth showing. "Give me the book," it said to me, suddenly, in Danny's cheerful voice. My throat tightened. "No," my double whispered, "don't give it." Eli's eyes flicked to me, pleading and furious at once. I whispered, barely audible, "I can't." The figure's smile faded. The applause outside started again, slow and impatient. The figure's voice layered again, crowd thick. "Then write it. Finish it." My skin prickled. Finish it. Like the journal wasn't just a record. Like it was a script we were trapped inside until the last line landed. I looked down at the notebook. The page was open to my frantic trench notes. And underneath my words, faint like an imprint, was a sentence I hadn't written yet. I squinted, heart pounding. It said in my handwriting, "You're standing in the wrong place." My stomach dropped. The Eli figure took one step closer. The air around it felt colder, like standing near deep water. It lifted the rifle slightly. Positions, it repeated, patient now. Or, "I make them for you." Ilias Yov tremblet. He whispered hoarse, "We can't fight it." Harris whispered, We have to run. Mark had run. Mark had died. The applause outside quickened, excited. My double whispered, "The seam is not here. The seam is the trench. It always is. This is just the funnel." Eli's eyes flicked to the doorway. Darkness, forest, clapping. He swallowed hard. "We go back," he whispered like it was poison. The Eli figure smiled. "Yes," it said sweetly. "Back to the good part." Harris made a broken sob. Eli grabbed Harris by the collar again. "Hard. Move," Eli hissed. "On my count." The Eli figure raised its rifle. The applause outside stopped, as if the audience leaned forward. Eli whispered, "3." My double whispered, "Now." Eli snapped, "2." Harris jerked, panic taking him, and bolted toward the doorway before Eli could finish. The Eli figure fired. The muzzle flash lit the farmhouse in white. Harris's body snapped sideways, slammed into a beam, and slid down into ash. He didn't even scream. The applause outside erupted, loud and delighted, like they'd been waiting for that beat. Eli's face twisted in horror and rage. "Fuck," he screamed. The Eli figure lowered its rifle slowly, smiling at the sound of Eli's grief. "Improvisation," it said almost fondly. "Always punished." Eli surged forward, reckless now, rifle up. The figure's smile widened. "Good," it said. "There you are. There's the emotion. That's what makes it real. Eli put it." The shot cracked. The figure jerked, then laughed. The bullet hole in its chest didn't bleed. It just darkened like wet ink soaking into paper. The figure stepped forward through the shot like it didn't matter. Eli fired again and again. Each impact left a dark stain, spreading slowly across the uniform like spilled ink. The applause outside rose, ecstatic. The figure tilted its head, smiling at Eli like a teacher watching a student finally understand. "You can't kill a memory," it said softly. Eli's hand shook. His magazine clicked empty. The figure stepped closer. Eli backed up without meaning to, boots scraping ash. My double whispered, "Now, run, back to the trench." I grabbed Eli's sleeve and yanked. Eli looked at me, eyes wild. "Mark," he whispered, like he couldn't stop saying the names. "Harris." "I know," I choked. "Move." The figure lifted its rifle again, aiming at Eli now. The applause outside stopped, perfectly timed, like a conductor's cue. "Eli frotze, griste hitching." The figure smiled. "Wrong place," it whispered. I yanked Eli hard and threw myself sideways, dragging him with me, crashing through a gap in the burnt wall into darkness. We hit the ground hard. Pain exploded through my shoulder. I bit down on scream. Behind us, the rifle cracked. A bullet whined past my ear and slapped into a tree with a wet thunk. Elin gasped, scrambling. We ran into the forest, blind, stumbling, branches whipping our faces. Behind us, the applause started again, following like a heartbeat. My double's voice was in my skull now, not just my ear. "Don't stop. Don't look. Don't listen." Eli was sobbing under his breath, but he ran. The forest folded. Paths repeated. Trees blurred. My stomach lurched with each time-skip jerk. At one point, we were sprinting through dark. Then we were sprinting through washed-out day. Then dark again. The applause rose and fell, always there. Eli shouted, "How do we get out?" My double whispered, "You don't. You get through." Eli screamed, "Through what?" "The mark," my double said. "The dip. The place you die. You have to hit it right." My stomach dropped. Eli looked at me, terror in his eyes. "What is he saying?" I swallowed hard, throat raw. "He says, we have to go to the place we die." Eli barked a laugh that was half hysterical. Perfect. We broke out of the trees, and the trench line yawned ahead of us again, like the forest had spit us out. The light was wrong. Eclipse wrong, like the day had reset. Smoke hung low. The air tasted of ash. The brace with the carved crack was visible in the trench like a landmark in a nightmare. Eli grabbed my arm, eyes fierce. "We're not doing this," he said. My double whispered, "Yes, you are." Eli shook his head violently. No, he snarled. No, I'm not dying for an audience. The applause swelled, closer now, like hands clapping just beyond the trench lip. My skin prickled. We dropped into the trench again, water swallowing our boots. Bodies were still there, slumped, bloated wrong. Mark's body was there too, even though we'd left it earlier. Reset, replayed, placed like a prop. Eli made a choking sound. My double whispered. They reset the stage between takes. Eli whispered back, voice shaking, we can't win. My double's voice softened, almost kind. You can't win, it agreed. But you can finish. Eli snapped, finish what? The record, my double said. The book. My breath hitched. The museum voice. The scan. The journal in collections. I stared at my notebook. Was that the finish? Was the ending just the artifact surviving? My stomach turned. Eli grabbed my collar, dragging me toward the brace. Tell him, Eli hissed. Tell him to fuck off. Tell him to let us go. I laughed, bitter. You think he listens to me? He is me. Eli's face twisted. Then choose different, Eli snapped. Be different, my double whispered. You always say that. We reached the brace. The carved crack looked deeper now, wet like it had fresh mud in it. The air around it was colder. The applause stopped suddenly, as if the audience held its breath. The Eclipse darkness deepened fast. Eli whispered, it's happening again. My double set positions. Eli looked at me, eyes wet, fury and grief and fear all fighting. We're not bringing Mark back, Eli whispered. We're not bringing Harris back. So what's the point? I swallowed hard. The point, my double whispered, is that if you don't finish it, you do it again. And again. And again. You lose more each time. Names. Faces. The reason you cared. Elias Terod Bolthith. He looked up at the sky. Darkness swallowing. I don't want to forget, he whispered. My chest tightened. Neither did I. I flipped my notebook open, hands shaking. The page under my fingers felt damp. Cold. I wrote fast, ugly. We are in the trench again. It repeats. It claps. It wears our faces. It wants the marks. Mark ran. Harris ran. They died. Eli whispered, what do we do? My double said, count. Eli Dlinket. Count. My double's voice was calm now, like a drill sergeant. From the brace, it said. The steps. The dip. The place you die. You have to be there when the darkness peaks. Not early. Not late. If you're late, you get shot. If you're early, the water takes you. Hit it exactly. My stomach lurched. Eli stared at me. Do you know the count? I swallowed. In rehearsal, I did. Ide praktisha. Ide upshisha. I'd wanted to disappear the right way. I whispered, 12. Eli's eyes widened. My double murmured, 12 from the lightning. But now it's deeper. Now it's 13. My blood went cold. Eli whispered, which is it? My double said, 13. The stage changed. I clenched my jaw. 13, I told Eli, voice shaking. Eli nodded slowly, like accepting a death sentence. Okay, he whispered. We do it. The trench water rippled again. I refused to look down. The applause started again, faint like distant surf. Eli whispered, if this doesn't work, my double whispered, it won't. Not clean, but it will move you. Eli's voice cracked. Move us where? My double didn't answer. The darkness deepened. Totality pressed in. The air went cold enough to sting. Eli grabbed my sleeve. 13, he whispered. We moved. 1, 2, 3. Boots splashing softly. 4, 5. I kept my eyes on the trench wall, on the wood, on anything but the water. 6, 7. The trench seemed longer than it should be, like distance stretched. 8, 9. The applause rose slightly, closer. 10. My stomach tightened. 11, 12. Eli whispered now. My double whispered. One more. 13. We stopped. The dip was there, the earth hollow that cradled the body. The place I'd practiced dying. Cold water pooled deeper here, up to my calves. My skin prickled. Eli pressed his back to the trench wall, breathing hard. The darkness pressed in fully. Totality. Everything went silent again, except the applause, which stopped too, as if the audience held its breath. My double's voice whispered, almost tender, "Hold." We held. Time stretched like rubber. And then I felt it. The trench water wasn't rippling anymore. It was rising, not like a wave. Like something below was filling it, slow and inevitable. Cold water climbed my shins. Eli whispered, panic in his voice, "It's rising." My double said, "Don't move." Water reached my knees. My chest tightened. Eli whispered, "We'll drown." My double said, "Yes." I wanted to scream. The water rose to my thighs, icy, numbing. Eli's breathing turned ragged. "No, no, no, no." My double whispered, "This is the part you never rehearse." The water reached my waist. My stomach clenched. Eli grabbed my sleeve, nails digging. "Please," he whispered. Not to me, not to the double, just into the dark. "Please." My double's voice softened. "It's okay." The water rose to my ribs. Cold at my bandage, my chest wound, and pain flared like fire. I gasped. Eli choked. "I can't." My double whispered, "Don't fight it. Fighting makes it worse." The water reached my throat. The applause started again, muffled now like hands clapping underwater. I realized in a flash of sick clarity that the applause wasn't outside the trench. It was everywhere, in the water, in the mud, in the air, like the ground itself was applauding. My double whispered, "Listen." I didn't want to, but I did. Under the applause, under the silence, I heard voices, hundreds, murmuring, excited, hungry. And among them, I heard my own voice over and over, layered like an echo. As soon as I'm healed up, Eli's eyes were wide in the dark. "I hear them," he choked. My double whispered, "Good. Now remember." The water slid over my mouth. Cold sealed my lips. I held my breath instinctively, lungs burning already. The world became pressure and muffled sound. In the water, the darkness wasn't empty. Shapes drifted, faces pale and open-eyed, like drowned men suspended. Some were French soldiers. Some were us. Mark's face floated past, eyes open, mouth working. Hairs floated past, his cheek cut, ash on his skin. And then I saw the double, my face, underwater, looking at me with those two open eyes. He reached out a hand, not grabbing, offering. His lips moved under the water, and somehow I understood the words without sound. "Give it to me." My notebook was still in my hand. How? I don't know. The leather should have been soaked. The paper should have turned to mush. But it was there, solid, heavy like an anchor. I clutched it to my chest. The double's hand touched the cover gently. His eyes held mine. And in that look, I saw it, saw the loop, saw the repetitions, saw myself waking intense, waking in trenches, dying, writing, forgetting, writing again until the only thing left was the need to write. I shook my head underwater, bubbles escaping. The double's gaze softened. He moved his mouth again. "Then you stay." My lungs screamed. Panic surged. I kicked instinctively, but there was nowhere to go, only trench walls and water and faces. Eli's hand grabbed my wrist underwater, desperate. His eyes were wild, pleading. He mouthed, "Help." My lungs burned so hard it felt like fire. The double's voice, somehow audible now, inside my skull, even underwater, whispered, "One of you can surface." Not both. My stomach dropped. I shook my head violently, bubbles bursting. Elias Creepypasta. His eyes were begging like a child. My vision tunneled. My double whispered, "Choose." I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to claw his face. I wanted to refuse the premise. But my lungs didn't care about ethics. They cared about air. I looked at Eli. He'd been the one holding everyone together. The one yelling move. The one forcing us forward when fear froze us. He looked so young in that moment. So human. I tried to pull him toward me, toward the notebook, toward the only anchor I had. But the water pressed. The trench pressed. Time pressed. My double whispered, softer now, almost kind, "You can save him and lose the record. Or save the record and lose him." My vision darkened at the edges. In my hand, the notebook felt like a stone. Elias grit sleepet. His fingers numb couldn't hold. He mouthed, please. I reached for him, and the notebook, heavy as it was, dragged my arm down. It pulled, like the trench wanted it, like the story wanted it, like the book was the only thing that mattered. My fingers tightened, not out of choice, out of fear, out of instinct, out of something deeper, something that felt like someone else's hand inside my hand. Eli's eyes widened as he realized. He shook his head underwater, furious, betrayed. His mouth opened, bubbles bursting. He tried to push off the trench wall, to rise, to surface. But the water pressed down like a hand, and then something below him grabbed his ankle. A pale hand, a hand that looked like mine. Eli's eyes snapped down in horror. He thrashed. The hand pulled. Eli's body jerked downward toward the bottom of the trench, toward the faces. His grip tore off my wrist. He sank. His eyes stayed on mine as he went, wide and furious and pleading, until the darkness swallowed him. I tried to scream. Bubbles burst. My lungs exploded with pain. My double's face drifted close. His eyes were calm now. He whispered inside my skull. Now you understand. Now you finish. My vision went black. I woke up coughing water like I'd been hauled out of a river. I was on my back on wet grass, choking, heaving, throat burning. Daylight stabbed my eyes. I rolled onto my side and vomited muddy water and bile. My chest hurt like someone had driven a spike through it. I clawed at my throat, gasping, sobbing without sound. When I could finally breathe without choking, I lay there shaking, cheek pressed to grass that smelled too clean, too modern. I blinked hard. A familiar sound hit my ears, whined through trees, birds, distant voices. Not French shouts, not artillery. Voices with that flat modern cadence. Laughter. Someone saying, "Dude, did you get a pic of totality?" My stomach flipped. I forced myself up on one elbow. I was in the forest, but it wasn't torn up by shells. No smoke, no bodies, no mutrenchis, just forest. And ahead, through the trees, sunlight filtered bright and normal. And beyond that, a crowd. A spectator line. People in shorts and sunglasses. Phones in the air. My mouth went dry. I looked down at myself. My uniform, my reenactment uniform, was on me again. My modern boots. My sling was gone. My chest bandage gone. No wound. For a second, relief hit so hard I nearly laughed. Then I saw my hands. They were stained with mud under the nails. Not reenactment mud. Real grounding grime. And in my right hand, clenched so hard my knuckles were white, was the notebook. The leather cover looked damp, dark, like it had been underwater. I sat up fully, shaking. The crowd noise drifted closer. Someone yelled, "Frenchies, you ready?" A whistle blew. A rehearsal cue. My skin crawled. I turned toward the trench line. It was there, fresh dug, cleanish reenactment grade. Timber braces, sandbags, all neat enough for a show. I stared at it, heart hammering. It was reset, like nothing happened, like Mark hadn't died, like Harris hadn't been shot, like Eli hadn't drowned. My throat tightened. I spun, searching the forest for familiar faces. Men in uniform moved through trees, joking, checking gear. One of them, Mark, walked by, laughing, alive, clapping another guy on the shoulder. My stomach lurched. I stumbled toward him. "Mark," I croaked. He turned, smiling. "Yo," he said. "You good? You look like shit." My vision blurred. I grabbed his sleeve, hard enough to make him frown. "Don't," I whispered. "Don't run. Don't go up when." Mark blinked. "What?" Behind him, Eli appeared, helmet crooked, grinning like he always did before showtime. "Hey," Eli called. "You spacing out? You ready to die pretty?" My chest tightened so hard it felt like a wound reopening. I stared at Eli. Eli's smile faltered slightly in my expression. "What's wrong with you?" he demanded. My throat closed. I wanted to tell him everything. I wanted to grab him and say, "You drowned and begged and I let you go." But the words wouldn't come. Not because I didn't want them, because something in my head had already started slipping. Names blurred at the edges. Harris's face, already fading like a dream you can't hold. Mark's last whisper, clapping, fuzzing. I looked down at my notebook fast, desperate. The first page, the museum voice, was there. My trench notes were there too, ink smudged but legible. And on the next blank page, faint like an imprint, was a line I hadn't written yet. As soon as I'm healed up, I swallowed hard. Elistepted closer, irritasen rising. Seriously, what's your deal? He snapped. Behind us, the whistle blew again. Men started moving toward the trench. The eclipse hadn't started yet. The sun was still bright, but the air had that pre-event buzz. I could already taste bitterness at the back of my throat. The world was pulling toward the seam again. My double's voice whispered, not in my ear this time, but inside my skull like it had always been there. You got one reset. One. I swallowed hard, eyes burning. Eli grabbed my sleeve. Move, he snapped. You're going to screw the spacing. I stared at him, at Mark, at the men laughing alive. I could try to change it. I could grab them, drag them away, scream that it's real, it's wrong, it claps, it drowns, it wears your face. And they would look at me like I was crazy. And even if they believed me, the script would find another way. A different bullet, a different hand in the water. My double whispered, right? I looked at the notebook. My hand shook. Eli shoved me gently but firmly toward the trench line. Come on, he hissed. We're up. I stumbled forward with them. The crowd, noise growing louder, modern voices, phones raised. A woman laughed. This is so cool. Someone clapped. Just once sharp like a test. My skin crawled. Mark jogged ahead, laughing alive. Eli followed, shouting some joke about French doctrine. I walked like my boots were full of water. At the trench, I found the brace. The crack like lightning was there, shallow, natural. Not carved. Not yet. I pressed my fingers to it, trembling. The whistle blew. The world surged forward into motion. I lifted the notebook and started writing as I walked, trying to keep my hand steady. It reset. They're alive. I'm back. The book remains. The seam is the trench. Don't run. Don't look down. 13 steps from the brace when it changes. If the water rises, don't. Someone jostled me. Dude, right later, Mark laughed. We're on. I didn't answer. The eclipse began. Light dulled. Shadows sharpened. The forest went still. And somewhere under the crowd noise, faint as a heartbeat, the applause began to gather. I kept writing because it was the only way I could keep myself from dissolving. The script moved. The men climbed. They went over. The barrage started, too heavy, too real. The smoke pooled. The Germans stepped out of it like a stage cue, rifle rising. In that split second, I had time to do one thing different. I moved. One step left. My double's warning burned in my head. Wrong place. The rifle cracked. The bullet hit the man behind me instead. Mark. He jerked, eyes wide, surprise replacing laughter, and he fell into the mud with a wet slap. The crowd screamed. Real screams now, not entertained. Someone shouted, "Is that real?" I stared at Mark's blood spreading, bright against dirt. My stomach dropped. I'd changed it. And still it happened. The script didn't care which of us took the hit. My double whispered, almost kindly, "See." I turned and ran, not toward safety, not toward the crowd, but toward the trench, toward the brace, toward the only seam I understood. Because now the performance had started, and it wouldn't stop until it got what it wanted. Behind me, people shouted, organizers panicked, someone yelled for medics. And under it all, louder now, delighted and hungry, the applause rose. I'm writing this in a tent again. Canvas walls. Carbolic stink. Men screaming outside. I've been shot again. Not as bad this time. A graze, maybe. Enough to justify me being here. Enough to keep me in the story. The doctor has a mustache again. The priest has pale, tired eyes again. They think I'm confused again. And the book is doing what it always does. Bleeding the future through the past through the future, until the pages feel like they're made of skin. I don't know if I'm going to be the one who drowns next time. I don't know if Eli will hear the double earlier. I don't know if Harris exists yet, or if he's already been erased by a choice I haven't made. But I do know this. The applause isn't for us. It's for the repetition. It's for the moment we break the same way every time. And it gets louder the more we try to resist. The only reason I'm still myself, still able to remember Mark's face when he fell, still able to taste the river mud, still able to feel guilty about Eli sinking, is because I keep writing before it can be taken from me. I can feel it pulling at the edges of my memory, even now, like someone flipping pages too fast, like someone scanning me under angled light and multispectral imaging, trying to peel me off the paper without breaking the spine. I don't know who finds this. I don't know if you're real or if you're another layer in the book, another voice bleeding through. But if you're reading, if you're holding this and feeling that little wrongness in the language, that little shift in rhythm, like the sentences don't belong to 1914, it's because they don't. They belong to the trench. They belong to the seam. They belong to the thing that claps. I try to change it. I moved one step left, and the bullet found someone else. I try to save them, and the water took them. I try to run, and the stage reset. I try to fight, and the wounds turn to ink. There is no winning. There is only finishing. The doctor is coming back. I can hear boots outside. I can smell tobacco. I can hear, faint under the screams, that patient applause starting to gather again like distant surf. If you ever go to one of these events, if you ever stand in a forest during an eclipse and feel the air go flat and wrong, don't clap, don't cheer, don't ask for an encore, because it will hear you. And if you find a notebook that smells like damp leather and river mud, and the ink looks too clean for its age, don't open it. Most of my job involves stabilizing items and not opening them.